The cap slipped from her fingers, tumbling like a fallen leaf onto the worn oak floor of her childhood bedroom in suburban Chicago. Madeline stared at it, the tassel swaying mockingly, as if it knew the weight it carried now. Her mother's voice echoed from downstairs, sharp as the winter wind slicing through the cracked window. "You think this changes anything? You're still our daughter, but we can't pretend. Not in front of everyone." She had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her head, ever since the letter arrived from Emerson College, sealed with the promise of a degree in theater arts. But nothing prepared her for the finality in her mother's tone, the way her father just nodded, his eyes fixed on the television screen flickering with some forgotten game show. They had always been the picture of Midwestern normalcy: church on Sundays, potlucks with neighbors who baked casseroles laced with unspoken judgments. Madeline, with her auburn curls cropped short and her laugh that lit up rooms, had shattered that image 2 years ago when she brought Genevieve home for Thanksgiving. Now, standing there in the dim light of her room, posters of Broadway divas peeling at the edges, she felt the air thicken. Her chest tightened, a sigh escaping like steam from a kettle pushed too far. She picked up the cap, fingers trembling, and whispered to the empty space, "Fine, then I'll walk it alone." The drive to Boston felt eternal, the highways blurring into a ribbon of regret and resolve. Madeline gripped the steering wheel of her beat-up Honda, the one Genevieve had dubbed Rosie for its stubborn refusal to quit. Genevieve's hand rested on her thigh, a steady anchor amid the storm brewing inside. They had met freshman year in a scene study class, Genevieve with her sketchpad always open, capturing the raw edges of monologues in quick, fluid lines. She was fire to Madeleine's water, a graphic design major from Miami whose family sent care packages of plantains and love letters in Spanish. Genevieve understood loss, the way it carved hollows where pride should be. Her own parents had disowned her at 17. After finding the Polaroids tucked under her mattress, girls tangled in embraces that spoke louder than words. "You don't have to do this," Genevieve said softly as they crossed the Massachusetts line, the skyline of Boston rising like a jagged promise. The words hung between them, laced with the scent of fast food coffee gone cold. Madeline glanced over, catching the worry etched in Genevieve's dark eyes, the way her full lips pressed into a thin line. "But I do," she replied, her voice cracking just a fraction. "It's not just the walk. It's claiming the space they left empty." They pulled into the dorm lot just as dusk painted the Charles River in hues of bruised purple. Genevieve's apartment off campus was a sanctuary of chaos, canvases leaning against walls, fairy lights strung like stars over a bed piled with quilts from her abuela. That night they lay tangled, breath sinking in the quiet. Genevieve's fingers traced patterns on Madeleine's back, spelling out courage in invisible ink. "Tell me about the play you're directing next year," Genevieve murmured, her accent wrapping around the words like velvet. Distraction was her love language, pulling Madeline from the abyss one story at a time. Madeline exhaled long and slow, the tension easing like a knot finally giving way. "It's about two women in the 1950s, trapped in their own skins, finding each other in a diner after midnight. One sings torch songs, the other draws maps to freedom." Genevieve chuckled, the sound vibrating against Madeleine's collarbone. "Sounds like us minus the era." They fell silent then, the city humming outside, fireflies of traffic lights blinking in Morse code. Sleep came fitfully, dreams laced with empty auditoriums and applause that echoed hollow. Morning broke with the clamor of graduation week, co-eds in sundresses hauling boxes down fire escapes, the air thick with jasmine from overflowing planters. Madeline dressed in her robe early, the fabric heavy as armor. Genevieve watched from the kitchenette, nursing a mug of cafecito, her curls tied back with a scarf that matched her eyes. "You look like a queen," she said, crossing the room to adjust the tassel. "Not alone. Never alone." The ceremony was held in the historic Wong Theater, its gilded ceilings a stark contrast to the nerves churning in Madeleine's gut. She filed in with her class, the line snaking through velvet ropes, whispers and laughter bubbling like champagne. Her name was called midway, the dean pronouncing it with a flourish that made her heart stutter. Madeline Harper, summa cum laude, theater arts. She ascended the stage, steps measured, the spotlight warm on her face. Scanning the sea of faces, she searched for the familiar cluster, the ones who should have flown in from O'Hare, clutching flowers and cameras. But the seats reserved in row 10 sat vacant, a yawning gap amid the cheers. A pause, brief but eternal, stretched as she accepted the diploma, leather cool against her palm. The audience clapped, polite and distant, but Genevieve rose from her spot in the orchestra, whooping with a ferocity that cut through the din. Her voice carried, raw and unfiltered. "That's my girl." Madeline locked eyes with her then, across the footlights, and something shifted. The emptiness didn't fill, but it transformed, becoming a canvas rather than a void. She gripped the diploma tighter, nodding once, a silent vow. As she descended, the weight lifted, replaced by a quiet fire. Genevieve met her at the wings, enveloping her in an embrace that smelled of citrus and ink. "Proud doesn't cover it," Genevieve whispered, lips brushing Madeleine's temple. "You owned that stage." They spilled out into the afternoon sun, the common alive with picnickers and street musicians plucking folk tunes on banjos. Madeline leaned against a lamppost, the robe draped over her arm like a conquered flag. "It hurts," she admitted, voice barely above the breeze rustling oak leaves. Like they carved out a piece and left the wound open. Genevieve knelt before her, hands framing her face, thumbs wiping at the dampness gathering in the corners of her eyes. "Let it hurt, then let it fuel you. That's how we rise." Dinner that evening was at a hole-in-the-wall Italian joint in the North End, candlelight flickering over plates of gnocchi drowning in pesto. Genevieve sketched on a napkin, capturing Madeleine's profile mid-laugh, the lines capturing the spark that refusal couldn't dim. They talked of futures, vague and glittering, Madeline dreaming of off-Broadway auditions, Genevieve of freelance gigs designing album covers for indie bands. The night deepened, wine loosening tongues, until Genevieve set down her fork, eyes serious. "Marry me. Not now but someday. When you're ready to build a family that shows up." Madeline stilled, fork hovering, the word family a double-edged blade. She reached across, intertwining fingers, skin warm and sure. "Someday," she echoed, the promise settling like dew on parched earth. They walked back hand in hand, the city a tapestry of neon and shadow, Boston breathing around them like an old friend. Weeks blurred into summer haze, the apartment a cocoon of lazy mornings and late-night rehearsals. Madeline landed a spot in a fringe festival production, directing her diner play in a black-box theater tucked in Somerville. Genevieve designed the posters, bold reds and blues evoking hidden desires. Rehearsals were electric, actors pouring their souls into lines that mirrored Madeleine's own fractures. One evening, after a particularly grueling run-through, she collapsed onto the couch, head in Genevieve's lap. "What if I'm not enough? What if the emptiness follows me?" Genevieve stroked her hair, rhythmic and soothing. "Then we fill it together, piece by piece." Her voice held no pity, only the steel of someone who'd forged her own path from ashes. They made love then, slow and deliberate, bodies mapping territories of trust. Afterward, in the quiet, Madeline traced the tattoo on Genevieve's wrist, a compass rose inked in memory of her grandmother. "You're my north," she murmured, the words slipping out unbidden. Fall crept in with crisp edges, leaves turning the Charles to fire. Madeline received the letter from her mother on a Tuesday, postmarked from Elmhurst, the envelope thin as regret. She slid it open over coffee, Genevieve watching from across the table, posture tense. The words were measured, clinical almost. "We love you. Always. But this path, it's not ours to walk." Enclosed was a check, $500, and signed. Madeline folded it away, a sigh heavy in her throat. It's not closure, but it's something. Genevieve pulled her close, chin resting on her shoulder. "Burn it if you want, or frame it as a reminder. Your choice." They chose neither, instead driving to the Cape that weekend, the highway unfurling toward Provincetown, where rainbow flags snapped in the salt wind. The town was a riot of color, galleries spilling onto sidewalks, drag queens hawking oysters from carts. They rented a cottage on the dunes, waves crashing like applause. Nights there were for stargazing, blankets spread on sand still warm from the day. Genevieve pointed out constellations, Stories woven from her father's old telescope. Orion the hunter, chasing what he couldn't hold. Madeline listened, head pillowed on her arm, the vastness above mirroring the one within. I walked that stage for me, she said one night, voice carried on the tide. Not them. And it felt free. Genevieve turned, eyes reflecting the Milky Way. That's the girl I fell for. The one who turns pain into power. They kissed then, salt-lipped and endless, the ocean bearing witness. Back in Boston, life resumed its rhythm, auditions and deadlines a balm to old wounds. Madeline directed her play to sold-out crowds, reviews praising the raw humanity. Genevieve landed a contract with a queer music collective, her designs adorning vinyl sleeves shipped worldwide. Winter gripped the city like a reluctant lover, snow blanketing the Freedom Trail and hush. Madeline bundled against the chill, scarf wound tight, as she trudged to the theater for callbacks. The role was small, a supporting part in a new musical about immigrant dreams, but it hummed with possibility. Genevieve waited in the lobby, thumbing through a dog-eared copy of Audre Lorde, her presence a quiet constant. Inside, the audition room smelled of dust and ambition, fluorescent lights harsh on hopeful faces. Madeline stepped onto the mark, script in hand, and let the words flow. The director, a wiry man with a Brooklyn accent, leaned forward. Again, deeper this time. Feel the ache. She did, channeling the echo of empty seats, the sting of that unsigned check. By the end, tears streaked her cheeks, unfeigned. You've got it, he said, clapping once. Callbacks next week. She emerged glowing, collapsing into Genevieve's arms amid the steam of street vendors hawking chestnuts. We celebrate, Genevieve declared, dragging her to a dive bar in Allston, where co-eds nursed beers and a jukebox spun Patsy Cline. They clinked glasses, foam sloshing, laughter bubbling free. To externed art, Madeline toasted, her voice warm with wine. Genevieve grinned, mischief in her eyes. And to the women who wheeled them. The bar thrummed with life, bodies swaying to twangy guitars, stories traded over sticky tables. A group of locals, transplants from Texas, pulled them into a round of darts, tipsy bets on who owed the next round. Madeline threw wild, missing the board entirely, her giggles dissolving into coughs from the haze of cigarette smoke wafting from the patio. Genevieve steadied her, hand at the small of her back, a touch that grounded and ignited. Later, stumbling home through flurries, arms linked, Madeline paused under a street lamp, breath fogging the air. I called her today. Mom. Genevieve stilled, waiting, the snow muffling the world. And she trailed off, searching for words. She asked about the play. Said she saw a review online. A beat, heavy with unsaid. It's not forgiveness, but it's a crack in the door. Genevieve squeezed her hand, gloves muffling the warmth. That's all it takes sometimes. Crack. They continued, boots crunching ice, the city a canvas of possibility. Spring thawed the streets, cherry blossoms dusting the esplanade like confetti. Madeleine's musical opened to murmurs of acclaim, her character a beacon in the chorus, voice soaring on notes of defiance. Genevieve sat front row, sketching the finale, tears blurring her lines. After the curtain fell, the cast spilled into a after-party at a loft in the South End. Exposed brick and fairy lights a backdrop to toasts and embraces. Madeline wove through the crowd, accepting hugs, her robe swapped for a slip dress in midnight blue. Genevieve found her by the window, overlooking rooftops twinkling like earthbound stars. You were luminous, she said, voice low, hand slipping to Madeleine's waist. They danced then, slow in the corner, oblivious to the whirl around them. The music shifted to something sultry, horns weaving through bass, and Genevieve's thigh pressed between hers, a private rhythm. Madeleine's breath hitched, fingers digging into shoulders scented with sandalwood. I want you, she whispered, the admission raw against the pulse of the room. Genevieve led her to a shadowed alcove, lips claiming in a kiss that tasted of champagne and certainty. The loft faded, the world narrowing to touches in size, clothes shed in whispers. Genevieve's hands mapped her like a long-studied map, eliciting gasps that echoed off beams. They moved together, urgent yet tender, bodies speaking what words sometimes failed. Afterward, tangled on a pile of cushions, Sweat cooling in the draft, Madeline traced Genevieve's collarbone. This, it's the family I choose. Genevieve smiled, sleepy and sated, fingers lacing through hers. And it chooses you back. Dawn crept in, painting the room gold, as they gathered their things, slipping out before the city woke fully. Coffee at a corner bistro followed. Croissants flaking onto plates, plans murmured over steam. Genevieve had a pitch meeting in New York a week away, for a book cover series on queer icons. You'll kill it, Madeline said, pride swelling. Bring back stories. The train station was a frenzy of farewells, platforms echoing with announcements. Genevieve boarded with a duffel and determination, waving from the window until the Amtrak pulled south. Alone in the apartment, Madeline felt the quiet acutely, pacing to the window overlooking the harbor, freighters gliding like ghosts. She pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over her mother's number. The call connected after 3 rings. Hello. The voice was tentative, laced with the flat vowels of home. Mom. It's me. Silence stretched, broken only by the distant honk of a tugboat. The play closed last night. Standing ovation. Another pause longer. I'm proud of you, Maddie. The nickname, unused in years, landed soft as snow. Tears pricked unbidden. Thanks. A sigh deep from the diaphragm. I miss you. At the table sometimes. The line crackled, emotion thickening the airwaves. We miss you too. Your father. He doesn't say it, but I know. Madeline closed her eyes, the harbor blurring. Maybe. One day. A visit. Yeah. Maybe. They hung up, the click final yet fragile, a thread reknit. Genevieve returned with tales of Manhattan grit, subway sketches and a contract in hand. They celebrated on the roof of their building, skyline sprawling, bottles of Prosecco fizzing under string lights. Summer swelled again, humid and insistent, drawing them west on a whim. Road trip to the Badlands, South Dakota. The plains unfolding like an old lover's secrets. Rosy grown-up interstates, radio crackling with Lucinda Williams, windows down to let wind whip their hair. They camped under star-pricked skies, tent zipper the only barrier to crickets and coyote calls. One night, around a fire spitting embers, Genevieve pulled a ring from her pack, simple silver with a sapphire chip. Not a proposal, she clarified, voice steady. Promise. To the someday. Madeline slipped it on, the metal cool against heat-flushed skin. It fits, she said, admiring the gleam, like it was waiting. They drove on, detouring through the Black Hills, Mount Rushmore looming stern in the haze. At a roadside diner, pie cooling on sills, an elderly couple at the next booth eyed them curiously. Genevieve, ever bold, struck up conversation, sharing travel tips over coffee refills. The woman, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, leaned in. You two remind me of us 50 years back. Before the world caught up. Her husband nodded, hand over hers. Love like that. It endures. Madeline absorbed the words, a balm to old scars. Back on the road, Genevieve at the wheel, she voiced the thought aloud. What if they come around? Mom and Dad. What then? Genevieve glanced over, sun glinting off aviators. Then you decide. No rush. The planes rolled by, buffalo grazing distant fences, a landscape of patience. Fall brought additions in Los Angeles, a siren call Madeline couldn't resist. Genevieve tagged along, laptop in tow for remote gigs. LAX sprawled chaotic, palm trees mocking the jet lag. They crashed at a friend's sublet in Silver Lake. Reservoir views and taco trucks a nightly ritual. Madeline's callback was for a pilot, a dramedy about queer families navigating Hollywood Hills. The studio lot buzzed, trailers like honeycomb, the air scented with eucalyptus and espresso. She nailed the read, chemistry sparking with the lead, a non-binary actor with a laugh like thunder. Walking out, script tucked under arm, she texted Genevieve. Think I got it. The reply buzzed instant. Knew you would. Tacos on me. That night, sprawled on the deck, city lights winking below, Genevieve sketched the reservoir at dusk, hues of lavender and rust. You're blooming here, she observed, pencil pausing. Madeline stretched, toes curling in the railing. Scared too. What if it pulls us apart? Genevieve set the pad aside, crawling over to straddle her lap. Then we tethered tighter. Her kiss sealed it, deep and devouring, hands roaming under tank tops warmed by fading sun. The offer came a week later, recurring guest star. Enough to lease a place of their own. They found it in Echo Park, adobe walls and bougainvillea spilling over fences. Moving day was chaos, boxes labeled in Genevieve's looping script, laughter echoing off hardwood. As dusk fell, unpacking paused for a picnic on the floor, take-out sushi and stolen sips of sake. "This is home," Madeline said, chopsticks midway to mouth. "Wherever we land." Genevieve nodded, eyes soft. "Because it's us." Winter in LA was mild, marine layers veiling the sun, but inside their bubble warmth abounded. Madeline's episodes aired to buzz, online forums dissecting her character's arc. A lesbian lawyer fighting for custody. Fan mail trickled in, letters from girls in small towns, echoing her own youth. She read them aloud to Genevieve over breakfast, voices breaking on shared triumphs. One evening a package arrived, brown paper crinkled, postmark Elmhurst. Inside a scrapbook, photos from childhood clipped with captions in her mother's neat hand. The final page, a ticket stub from Emerson's site, printed but unused. A note tucked in. "Watch the stream. Cried through it. Love always." Madeline traced the words, throat tight. "Progress," she whispered, handing it over. Genevieve flipped through, smiles fading to understanding. "They're trying. In their way." She set it aside, pulling Madeline to the couch. "And you're thriving in yours." They held each other as rain pattered the roof, a rare storm cleansing the air. Spring bloomed riotous, jacarandas painting streets violet. Genevieve's designs went viral. A campaign for a trans rights org splashed across billboards. They attended the gala in West Hollywood. Madeline in a borrowed gown of emerald silk, Genevieve in tailored slacks and a blouse unbuttoned just so. The room glittered, speeches soaring on notes of resilience. On the dance floor, swaying to an indie cover of Heart, Madeline leaned in. "I want to go back. To Chicago. See them." Genevieve stilled, then nodded. "Whenever you're ready." The song ended, applause rippling, but their moment lingered, a pivot point. The flight to O'Hare was turbulent, clouds boiling like unresolved thoughts. Madeline gripped the armrest, Genevieve's hand a lifeline across the aisle. They rented a car at the gate, a sensible sedan this time, and drove the familiar turns to Elmhurst, subdivisions unfolding like memory lanes. Her parents' house loomed unchanged, vinyl siding and flower beds manicured, the porch light flickering on early dusk. She knocked, knuckles white, Genevieve at her side like a shield. The door opened to her mother's face, lined deeper but eyes the same hazel. "Maddie." A hesitation, then arms opened. Hug awkward at first, then softening. Her father hovered in the hall, hands in pockets, nodding gruff. "Come in. Beer's in the fridge." The kitchen smelled of meatloaf and memory, formica counters scarred from years of meals. They sat at the table, small talk skirting edges. "The show. Saw you on it." Her father grunted, twisting a label. "Tough business." Genevieve chimed in, light as air. "She's killing it. Directing too, back in LA." Pride laced her words, a bridge. Dinner unfolded halting, forks scraping plates, silences filled with weather and sports. Madeline pushed peas around, pulse thudding. "I walked alone that day. The graduation. You know why." Her mother's fork paused, gaze dropping. "We do." Feared the looks. The talk. "In our circle." A sigh ragged. "Didn't think it through." How it landed. Genevieve squeezed Madeline's knee under the table, unseen support. "It landed hard," Madeline said, voice steady, like rejection scripted for stage. But I rose. Found my own applause. Her father cleared his throat, eyes moist. "Saw the clip. You shone. Sorry doesn't fix, but we are. Sorry." The words hung fragile as spun glass. Tears welled unbidden and Madeline let them fall, no wiping away. Genevieve spoke then, gentle. "Love's not a circle. It's a choice. Daily." They nodded, the room exhaling collective breath. Dessert was pie, apple from the neighbor's tree, served with coffee black as resolve. They stayed the night in her old room. Twin bed creaking under them, posters faded ghosts. Genevieve traced her jaw in the dark. Brave, she murmured. You. Madeline turned, lips brushing. Sleep came deep, dreamless, the house settling around them like forgiveness tentative. Morning brought pancakes, her mother's specialty, stacked high with syrup. Plans murmured of a drive to the lake, Michigan shore a half-hour east. They piled in the old Buick, windows down, wind carrying lake scent. The beach was quiet, gulls wheeling, waves lapping pebbles. Her parents walked ahead, shoulders brushing after years apart in spirit. Madeline and Genevieve lagged, barefoot in surf, toes curling in cool foam. Feels surreal, Madeline said, watching them pause at a driftwood log. Like a scene I wrote but forgot the ending. Genevieve linked arms hip to hip. Endings are beginnings. Write this one open. They caught up, the four settling on the sand, tails traded like shells. Her father spoke of his own youth, a closeted fling in college, buried under marriage and mortgage. Never told. Regret it now. Her mother confessed church guilt. Sermons twisting love into sin. Working through it. With a group. Online. Progress piecemeal. As sun dipped, painting water gold, Madeline leaned against Genevieve. Thank you. For showing up. Always. The drive back was lighter, radio tuned to oldies, her father humming off-key. At the house, hugs lingered, promises exchanged. Call more. Visit LA. Soon. They drove away, taillights fading, Elmhurst shrinking in the mirror. In the car, silence companionable, Madeline exhaled long. It's not perfect, but it's real. Back in LA, summer heat baked the canyons, wildfires smudging horizons. Madeline's arc expanded, her character central now, scripts arriving by courier. Genevieve freelance from cafes in Venice, boardwalk sketches capturing rollerbladers and buskers. Evenings were for hikes in Griffith Park, observatory looming like a beacon, city sprawled below. One twilight atop the trail, sweat cooling, Genevieve dropped to one knee, ringbox velvet. Now. Someday is today. Marry me, Madeline Harper. The words trembled, eyes fierce with love. Madeline gasped, then laughed, tears mixing with dusk. Yes. God, yes. They kissed as stars pricked, coyotes yipping approval. Planning unfolded lazy, no rush, elopement whispers over wine. A justice of the peace in Palm Springs, desert bloom framing vows. Genevieve's brother flew in, the only family tie, tattoos and grin wide. Her parents sent a card, silver embossed. There in spirit. Love. Madeline clutched it, ache softening to warmth. The ceremony was small, under a canopy of date palms, air scented with citrus and earth. Genevieve in white linen, curls loose, Madeline in azure silk flowing like waves. Vows exchanged simple, rings sliding eternal. I choose you, every act, every scene. The kiss sealed, cheers from the handful, brother snapping photos blurry with emotion. Reception was a picnic, blankets spread, tamales and cake devoured under string lights. Dancing barefoot to a playlist of their making. From Nina Simone to Halsey, bodies swaying synced. Genevieve pulled her close mid-song. Mrs. Rivera Harper. Feels right. Madeline smiled, forehead to forehead. It does. All of it. Fall brought honeymoons in spirit. A road trip north to Big Sur. Cliffs plunging to Pacific roar. They drove convertibles, wind wild, stopping at coves for swims in icy tidapools. Nights in cliffside inns, fireplaces crackling, bodies entwined under quilts. Stories shared deep, fears voiced soft. Genevieve's of legacy lost, rebuilding with art. Madeleine's of blood ties mending slow. Back home, life layered richer. Rings glinting in stage lights. Madeleine's show renewed, awards buzz humming. Genevieve opened a studio, queer artists collaborating. Walls alive with color. Holiday cards went out, joint names bold, addresses dual coast. To Chicago, a photo enclosed, wedding smiles radiant. Her mother's reply came swift, plane tickets booked. They arrived in January, LA sun mocking Midwest chill on their cheeks. Tour of the studio first, Genevieve beaming as they oohed over murals. Then the set, Madeline walking them through wardrobe. Her character a mirror held gentle. Dinner after Thai in Koreatown, spice burning tongues and barriers. Her father raised a glass voice gruff. To family. Found and kept. Tears flowed free, toasts rippling. Back at the house, guest room aired, they sat late, photos passed hand to hand. Progress, her mother said, hand on Madeleine's. One step. Genevieve nodded, arm around her wife. And well, walk them together. Spring unfurled. Cherry tomatoes in window boxes, scripts piling. Madeleine directed a short film, Genevieve scoring visuals, their synergy electric. Festival acceptance came, Sundance whisper, snow-capped peaks calling. They flew east again, but this time to Park City, not Chicago, the irony not lost. The screening packed, lights dimming on their creation. A tale of two women bridging divides. Applause thundered, Q&A flowing raw. Afterward, at a fireside party, industry whispers swirled. Her parents watched the live stream, texting midway. Stunning. You. Genevieve read it aloud, grinning. See. Cracks to canyons. Summer circled back, anniversaries marked with quiet. A weekend in Napa, vines heavy with promise. They picnicked under oaks, cheeses and breads, wine loosening dreams. Kids maybe. Adoption paths. Or just us expanded. Choices open, futures sketched loose. One evening, phone rang, her mother's number. Maddie. Dad had a stroke. Mild. But. Come if you can. Heart clenched, bags packed hasty. Genevieve drove to LAX, hand steady. Well, face it. As one. The flight blurred, worry thick. Landing to her father's pale face in the ICU. Monitors beeping steady. He woke slow, eyes finding hers. Knew you'd come. Weak smile. She gripped his hand, Genevieve at elbow. Always now. Days blurred in hospital hush, coffee bitter, vigils shared. Her mother leaned on her, confessions spilling. Feared losing you. Like him now. Don't. Madeleine held her, rocking gentle. You won't. Not to fear. Recovery stretched, rehab in Elmhurst, them shuttling coasts. Genevieve worked remote, designs emailed, presence unwavering. One afternoon in the garden, her father wheeled out, voice stronger. Proud. Of this life you built. Genevieve. The ring. All. Tears, his first silent tracks. Love you, kid. Fall leaves turned, flights routine now, family woven tighter. Back in LA, Madeleine's film won. Indie Spirit Award, speech heartfelt. To those who walk alone first. Then together. Applause swelled, Genevieve in wings, eyes shining. Winter wrap gentle, holidays split. Chicago then LA, tables laden with fusion feasts. Her parents met Genevieve's brother. Stories bridging gaps, laughter healing. New Year's Eve on the deck, fireworks blooming, Madeleine turned to her. This. The empowerment. It started alone. But look. Genevieve pulled her close, city pulsing below. Look indeed. Empowered. Entwined. Forever. Spring bloomed anew, dogwoods dusting the hills white. Madeleine's career crested. A lead in a prestige drama. Location scout in New Orleans for authenticity. Genevieve tagged, camera in hand, capturing jazz funerals and beignet-dusted sugar. The city thrummed voodoo pulse, bayous whispering secrets. Filming commenced humid, sweat beating under lights, dialogue dripping with southern drawl. Her character, a civil rights attorney entangled in love, echoed life threads. Offset, they wandered French Quarter, absinthe Lucian glasses, hands linked under wrought iron balconies. One night in a courtyard bistro, sax wailing mournful, Genevieve sketched her mid-bite. You glow here. Like home found new. Madeleine paused, fork hovering, gumbo steam rising. Everywhere with you is home. The words landed soft, truth unveiled. They made love in their garden district rental. Shutters flung to magnolia scent. Bodies arching in moonlight. Afterward, tangled sheets, she voiced the dream aloud. A place. Our own. Not coast-tide. Genevieve propped on elbow, curls tumbling. Where? Mountains. Maybe Asheville. Artsy. Green. They plotted lazy. Maps unrolled over breakfasts of pralines and chicory. Rap party came, brass band parading streets, cast spilling beads and cheers. Her parents called midway, voices tinny over noise. Break a leg. Or whatever they say. Laughter shared, distance shrinking. Post-rap they drove north, interstates curving to Appalachia, leaves turning early crimson. Asheville welcomed lush, Blue Ridge humped misty. They toured lofts downtown, breweries bubbling below galleries. One spot hooked, turreted Victorian, river view from porch swing. Sold. Keys jangled, promise. Moving east was ritual, boxes packed with the sunsets folded away. Genevieve's studio bloomed in the turret, canvases unfurling, clients mailing briefs. Madeline audition remote, voiceover gigs padding tiller. Winters mild, snow rare but magic when it dusted. They shoveled paths to the river, boots crunching, breaths fogging jokes. Her father visited first, flight bumpy, landing steadier on his feet. Rehab worked wonders, Kane traded for swagger. He grilled on the porch, smoke curling, stories of his mill days swapped for hers. Genevieve bonded over brews, sketching his portrait, lines capturing crags of wisdom. Proud, he said one dusk, hand on hers. Chose well. Her mother followed, spring equinox, dogwoods full. She wandered the studio, fingers trailing textures, eyes widening at queer portraits bold. Beautiful, she breathed. Honest. They baked that night, her recipe for collages, dough rising like bridges. Talk turned tender, apologies deepened. I saw you. Truly. Late. But I see. Summer festivals dotted calendar, their film touring heartland, crowds in Des Moines and Austin, questions probing souls. Madeline spoke of walking alone, empowerment born of absence. Genevieve added layers, art as witness. Applause followed, connections sparked, invites to speak at colleges. Fall harvest brought kin, Genevieve's brother road tripping with his partner, tents pitched backyard for glamping. Fireside yarns wove tight, Esmeralda's sticky fingers constellations charted. He pulled Madeline aside one dawn, coffee steaming. You saved her. From the dark. She saved me too, she replied, truth reciprocal. Thanksgiving anchored tradition new, table groaning turkey and tamales, her parents flying in full. Awkward thaw to ease, toasts clinking on chosen family. Her father carved, knife steady, jokes landing light. Genevieve passed plantains, recipes traded, laughter layering like phyllo. Winter solstice, snow-blanketed ridges, they strung lights riverine, reflections dancing. Madeline penned a one-woman show, stage directions scribbled in lamplight, Genevieve illustrating prompts. Premiere local, black box intimate, seats filled friends and strangers. She poured it out, monologues of refusal to rise, alone to allied. Curtain call, spotlight warm, she scanned faces, parents in third row, eyes glistening. Genevieve center, ring-catching light, smile beacon. Ovation swelled, bows deep, after party at home, mulled wine warming bones. Her mother hugged tight. That was you. All of you. Thank you. Spring equinox circled, anniversary second. River swelled with melt. They renewed quiet under the swing, vows whispered to willows. Careers crested tandem. Madeleine's show option Broadway bound. Genevieve's exhibit Manhattan bound. Travels pulled but home tethered, Asheville heart. One June dawn, test stick pink. Adoption papers inked months prior. A boy 3 from foster churn, eyes wide trust. They named him Leo for light. First day's chaos, bottles and books, nights tag teamed. Her parents arrived, grandparents tentative, arms opening wide. He's perfect, her mother cooed, rocking gentle. Leo grew toddling, backyard chases. Genevieve's sketches capturing dimples. Madeline directed from porch, scripts balanced on knee, Leo napping close. Family swelled, visits coast to coast, holidays hybrid. Her father taught fishing, line casting, lazy arcs. Love, he said, watching ripples. Like this. Keeps going. Years layered, Leo schooling, braces glinting questions. Madeline headline stages, Tony whispers. Genevieve galleried coasts, retrospectives hung. They mentored queer youth camps in summers, stories shared circles. Empowerment echoed, ripples from one stage walk. On Leo's 10th, backyard fete, balloons bobbing breeze. Guests mingled kin blood and chosen. Madeline watched Genevieve chase him, laughter peeling, heart full ache sweet. That night after tucking they swayed kitchen slow, dishes soaking. We did this, she murmured. From alone to this. Genevieve kissed brow, hand splayed back. And more to come. Dawn broke next. Family stirring, coffee brewing. Life unfolding, script unwritten. The walk that started solitary echoed now in steps synced. Empowerment not endpoint but path eternal. Love the truest stage. In quiet moments Madeline sighed content. The world's weight lightened shared. Human threads wove resilient. Refusals to receptions, alone to legions. The end not closure but story breathing on.